Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, who's going to win it? It's between those two players. This is definitely hype, man. Alright, this is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are listening and watching to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am joined by guest Holden Douglas today to debate about who should win the 2023 NBA MVP award. Like I said, there are two players that are in this debate race for MVP. That's Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. I know Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's technically in it, but he's probably not going to win it because it's between these two players. And this has been a back and forth race. Ultimately, though, this is likely coming down to preference between the two players as they are both dominant in entirely different ways. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. Who should win the 2023 NBA MVP award? Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic?
The better player between Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid is that Jokic is a better player. But in terms of MVP, this is debated by storylines, by what the media wants, and voter fatigue. Jokic has won the MVP back to back. And this year, I don't see him winning again. I think they're going to try to bring up the narrative that who's the best center, Embiid or Jokic. And because the tight is so race and there's so big of a debate, I think they're going to give the MVP to Embiid because it creates more of a narrative. The NBA, they want narratives. The MVP isn't who's the best player because Giannis is the best player in the NBA, but he hasn't won the MVP in the last couple of years because Jokic was the better narrative as, wow, he's playing so great without Jamal Murray, without any help. And now the narrative is, oh, is Embiid better than Jokic? They're trying to force it down our throat and they're tired of just Jokic winning it all the time. They want something new. They want to get more experimental with the MVPs, just with the league.
I see where you're going with your pick for Joel Embiid, but there's a key word in the question that I asked. The word is should. I didn't say who will win the MVP award. I said should. And when I talk about should, to me, it's not even much of a debate. I think Nikola Jokic should absolutely win the MVP award. What does Joel Embiid do better than Nikola Jokic? The only things that Joel Embiid does better than Nikola Jokic is points, blocks, and free throw percentage. And the turnovers, they're about the same. But Nikola Jokic is more of a passer than Joel Embiid is. Everything else that Nikola Jokic does, he's better than Joel Embiid at. You look at the stats for Nikola Jokic. Who's a better rebounder? Nikola Jokic. Who's a better passer? Clearly, Nikola Jokic. Who's a better center at making steals happen? Nikola Jokic. Who can shoot the ball better? Nikola Jokic. Who can space the floor better? Nikola Jokic. Who shoots at insane efficiency? Nikola Jokic. The advanced stats literally scream Nikola Jokic for MVP. And I think the eye test co-signs that as well. The eye test clearly says Nikola Jokic is the better player between him and Joel Embiid. This is not a scoring contest. This is not a whoever scores the most amount of points wins the game automatically or wins the award in this case. This is about how much impact you put on the floor game in and game out. And when you talk about durability, Nikola Jokic clears Joel Embiid in that department. And also, let me point out to a game that they had against each other earlier in the week where Joel Embiid missed out on that game. You know what that tells me? That tells me that Nikola Jokic got more character than Joel Embiid when it comes to his MVP race, and Nikola Jokic is willing to do whatever it takes to help his team win the game, which is what playing basketball should all be about. Nikola Jokic has got to win the MVP just from a pure basketball standpoint when you just talk about one-on-one player comparison. And then you also look at the situation because team accomplishments should also matter in the MVP race as well. You look at what Nikola Jokic has done in the Western Conference. He's taken the Nuggets to the first seed in the Western Conference. Joel Embiid, he's had a fantastic year, don't get me wrong, but his team's not the number one seeded team in the Eastern Conference. If you took Nikola Jokic off the Denver Nuggets, this Nuggets team would be a play-in team. If you took Joel Embiid off the 76ers, though, I'm still convinced it can be a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. So you look at the impact that Nikola Jokic has had, I think it's got to be clear as day that Nikola Jokic should win the MVP award over Joel Embiid.
I completely agree where you're coming from when you say Jokic is more deserving and he's more impactful to his team. It should be interpreted as who's the front runner. And I think the front runner right now is Joel Embiid. He has the Sixers as the 3rd seed in the East. I know they're not as good of a seed as the Nuggets, but the Nuggets are in a much weaker conference. Embiid has the more gaudy stats. And in general, if we're talking about defense, the voters, it's like what I've said before. They want to get more experimental. They want something new. The MVP is different every single year. The reason why Giannis didn't win it in 2021 is because Jokic was a new candidate. Embiid is the new candidate and he's going to overtake Jokic for the award.
I see where you're coming from with your argument about voter fatigue, but honestly, who cares about voter fatigue? You vote for the best player, and you vote for whoever is the most valuable player year in and year out. Now, if you want to argue that Nikola Jokic should not have won the MVP last year, I'm with you on that. He should not have won the MVP last year. Joel Embiid should have won the MVP last year. Anyways, though, but you're talking about this year, and when you talk about this year, what does Joel Embiid do that makes him definitively better than Nikola Jokic? The only thing that Joel Embiid does better than is free throw shooting percentage and being able to score the basketball. But last time I checked, when you play the game of basketball, it is more than just about scoring points. How can you help facilitate the basketball? How can you get other guys open? How do you do as a leadership kind of guy? I'm not saying Joel Embiid isn't a great leader. He is a great leader, but Nikola Jokic is also a great leader as well. Who's mentally tougher? Who's more durable? When you look at all these factors, Nikola Jokic clearly should win the MVP over Joel Embiid. It's not even up for debate. The Denver Nuggets, they've been known as one of the best teams in the NBA this season. You think if you take Nikola Jokic off the Denver Nuggets, you think the Denver Nuggets are a top 6 seed in the Western Conference? Because I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be the case. But if you take Joel Embiid off the Philadelphia 76ers, they are still a top 6 seeded team in the Eastern Conference. And as to your point about the Western Conference being the weaker conference, I would actually almost significantly disagree with that. I know record-wise it might support your points with that, but I'm going to disagree with that because you look at all the talent in the Western Conference. You look at the up-and-coming Sacramento Kings. They're a fast team that has one of the NBA's best offenses in all of basketball. Then you got a young Grizzlies team. Now, granted, they've had Ja Morant miss a good amount of games because of his troubles off the court, but the Grizzlies are still a good team on paper. Then you've got the Phoenix Suns. Now, I know that Kevin Durant's been hurt a lot, but Kevin Durant is still in the Western Conference, so you look at the Phoenix Suns, they're a really good basketball team. Then you look at the Clippers, they're very good bench-wise. Then you look at the Golden State Warriors, we know what the Warriors can do. You look at the Lakers, the new-look Lakers, that is, they look really good as well. And the Western Conference is so deep right now that a team led by Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are on the verge of missing the play-in tournament for the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm not going to necessarily agree with your point about Nikola Jokic playing the easier conference. If Nikola Jokic took 5 to 10 games off, the Denver Nuggets would significantly fall off and they would drop by considerably if they didn't have such a huge lead to begin with in the Western Conference. But that's just me.
I mean, the Eastern Conference is more top-heavy than the Western Conference. So if you put the Nuggets in the East, they would be about the same positioning as Philly, possibly worse of a record. Where in the West, where it's like, there's been a lot of underperforming teams. The Clippers, the Warriors, even the Lakers, Mavericks, a lot of those teams, they've just been underperforming and they're not as good of a team as they are on paper. So I think it's going to come into play as in like the Embiid voters, they're going to use the excuse of like, oh, they were in the East and oh, they've been keeping it close with Milwaukee and Boston, where with Denver, they're the first seed. But again, it's like they haven't played against top heavy teams in their conference. They've played against a bunch of underperforming or mediocre teams. That's just how the voters are going to look at it. I'm not so much looking at it through my perspective of who I think is the better player, but I'm looking at it as a perspective of a voter. I'm looking at it as a perspective from the media as who they're going to pick for MVP, what they want, not so much for myself. If we're talking just my personal opinion or your personal opinion, I think Jokic is a better player to a lot of the points you said. But I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm looking at it from the media, from the voter, who they want as the MVP, who they should pick as the MVP.
So you're basically going to hide behind your actual opinion behind these voters. I see what you're doing with that. And to answer your question about the voters, if I was a voter, I'd vote Nikola Jokic in 5 seconds, then walk away and say, yep, that's it. I'm not even thinking twice about it. Nikola Jokic is the more valuable player this season. This is not a lifetime achievement award. This is not about who's the better overall player career-wise. We're just talking this season. And when you talk this season, it's obviously Nikola Jokic. I'm sick and tired of all these people arguing Joel Embiid for MVP. Look, Joel Embiid, let me make this clear. He's a fantastic player, and he's been dominant in his own way. But last time I checked, basketball is a game where you have to impact all parts of the floor, and Nikola Jokic just simply does it better than anybody else in the National Basketball Association. It's as simple as that. And if you want to talk about Best Player Award, well, then Giannis should win it. But obviously, we know that's not how the MVP award works, because if that was the case, LeBron James should have won MVP every single year he took the Cavs and the Heat to the NBA Finals. So obviously, we know that it doesn't work that way. So to me, I gotta go with Nikola Jokic. I mean, look, you can go with Joel Embiid all you want, but at the end of the day, Nikola Jokic should and will win the MVP award. But that's just my takeaway for it. All right, well, thanks for being on the show, Holden. Appreciate you coming on here to debate about me, about the argument between Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid for the MVP award. All right, make sure you follow his Instagram account. He's got 2 of them. All right, so make sure you follow him at Holden_great. The other one is at sports.analyze. All right, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Catch you next time, dude. Peace.
All right, see ya, bro. Yup, bye. That was Holden Douglas that you guys just heard. Alright, so he's going to pick Joel Embiid as the guy that should win the NBA MVP award. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and pick Nikola Jokic to win the NBA MVP award. To me, it's not even much debate between the two. If one guy is leading his team to the #1 seeded team in the Western Conference, which is the tougher conference, as well as playing in more games than the other guy, then obviously Nikola Jokic should go ahead and win the MVP award. But that's just my opinion. That's how I see it. So that is why Nikola Jokic should win the 2023 NBA MVP award over Joel Embiid. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That will be for the @DustinTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at DustinTran and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at DustinTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.